So this video is going to be a little bit different than what you're probably used to seeing on my channel. And it was precipitated by a webinar that I gave recently for my art course that I just finished. One of the members, well, these webinars, I do one every month for those who purchase my course. And during the webinar, I'll answer questions that people send to me through email. And if they send me photographs of their artwork, I'll critique those paintings. So I received a comment from one of the members after this last webinar that was last Thursday. And the more I pondered, I originally intended to just talk to the members of the art course about this, but the more I pondered on it, the greater my desire became to share it with more than just those in the course, especially with those who have subscribed to my channel. Because what I have to say about art and in response to this comment are really the basis of why I do what I do as an artist. And it's going to be a reflection of my values, my principles, the underlying structure of how I think and how I paint. So I thought this might be instructive and a little bit interesting, maybe, for those who watch my videos on YouTube as well. So the comment today, or the comment Thursday, was this: I need to say something, not trying to sound mean. Today's critique of the sorry about that. Today's critique of the guitar painting, which took up most of the critique time, was, in my humble opinion, entirely improper for the workshop we're taking. There are people in our group who are serious about painting, and this was nothing more than a craft project. Some of us got shut out because most of the critique time was spent on something that didn't deserve it. Sorry, not trying to be a meanie, but really? So this immediately brought to mind some of my experiences along the way in the last 30 years of being an artist, but especially when I was completing my Master of Fine Arts degree. I had that kind of thinking from a lot of my professors. So I wanted to share a little bit about that. And that's not, the person who wrote this, I understand where she's coming from and why she wrote it. But I don't agree with it. And I'm going to explain why I don't agree with that. So when I'm all done, I'll probably take that webinar that's generally reserved for just the members of the course and put it on YouTube so people can see it. It wasn't necessarily my best question and answer period because there are some things that I'm trying to figure out as I go along as far as how much time to devote to certain aspects. And we're coming up with some different ideas, like a thing called paint-togethers, where I send out a photograph to all the members, and those who want to will paint that photograph, do a painting of that photograph, and then we share it with each other. And on this was our first time doing that, and I offered to critique a little bit of some of the paintings that were done and that sort of thing. I'm going to modify that a bit. So some of the webinar that you'll see wasn't necessarily as smooth flowing as I would like it to be, or as it'll eventually get to be, but there was a lot of good instruction in there, and the critiquing is just a part of it. So as we go along, I'll get that down. But the reason why I critiqued one of the members did a painting of flowers and things on a guitar. It wasn't a real guitar. It was a fabricated guitar, something she made out of metal and other material. And then she painted it with and put flowers and things over it, daisies and that sort of thing. And yes, it probably would be considered more on the folk side of things, folk craft or folk art. But for me, there's not a separation between the different types of art. They're all art. and they all have merit, and they all have foundation, oftentimes in the same underlying principles. And that is what I'm interested in as an artist. For me, it's not so much about the specific technique or style or genre of art. It's about the principles that form the underlying structure and solidity and that make something excellent, as opposed to not so sound or not as well done. What are the principles that make one piece of artwork seem more successful and more magnificent than another? That's what I'm shooting for. And when I'm critiquing a painting, that's what I'm trying to do. Not decide whether this particular piece of art has merit, comparatively speaking, to some other piece of artwork, but what principles can I teach for this particular student that will help them to increase the excellence, the craftsmanship, the skill that are underlying in that particular, in the art that they want to pursue. So let me give you a little bit of background then about me and how I got started and what it was in my life that took me to where I am today with my art and the way that I think about art. So I grew up, my father is an artist. He was a graphic designer and professional photographer for most of my life, and he wanted to be a painter. I come from a family that's pretty brilliant, actually. My dad's got a genius IQ. I have a brother, or had a brother. He died when he was 28 in a car accident. He had a genius IQ. Very, very smart. Smarter than me. Much smarter than me. And I grew up around people who liked to think and to discover and to learn. And so watching my dad with his artwork, he was brilliant. And I loved that. I was blessed to grow up around somebody that was so skilled and smart and good at what he was doing. And so especially in high school, I mean, I've been doing art since I can remember. In fourth grade, I did a painting for an art contest, the Return of the Swallows contest. We lived in San Juan Capistrano, and Return of the Swallows painting contest, I won an art prize. I got McDonald's French fries for my participation in the program. And it was fun. I've loved art my whole life, following my dad to the galleries, to the museums, seeing all of this stuff that's out there. And I saw the gamut of it. And I enjoyed most of it. So I've had art in my life for a long, long time. I'll be 50 here in a month and a half. So I've been doing this for quite a while. And I don't consider myself a brilliant artist. I think that I've been doing it long enough that I have some skills and I have some things that I can teach to others. But I recognize that in this large world of ours, there are some really brilliant people out there. And there are some artists that I sincerely admire and want to be as good as they are. So I'm nowhere near where I want to be at the end of my life. I'm glad that I'm only, maybe halfway through. Actually, my goal is to live to be 150. I probably won't be able to get there in today's world with surrounded by all the toxins we are and all that sort of thing. But I try to keep myself healthy so I can live as long as I can, because I want to keep painting and doing something that I enjoy. And painting is something that I really enjoy doing. But I don't look at what I do as something significant. I look at it as, this is what I enjoy, and so this is why I do it. Who cares if it's important or not? But it wasn't always that way. When I was, at least I've struggled periodically with the idea of, is what I do important? Should I be doing what I'm doing right now? Is landscape, impressionism, or realism, or any of that, or painting flowers, is that legitimate? Could I be doing something better, more important? Something that the museums would want to hang someday in the future? So I've thought about those things over time, and for the most part, I've discarded all of that. And it doesn't influence me anymore. but I can't say that it hasn't at times crossed my mind. So when I was growing up, my dad is a fan of Cezanne. I've always thought that Cezanne's work was a bit discordant, not as beautiful as some of the other impressionists or post-impressionists. Like when I was in high school, especially, even when I was young, I loved Monet and Pissarro, and I loved Norman Rockwell, and I especially liked Van Gogh. Just the energy, the saturated color, and to me, what they did was beautiful and challenging and complicated. So it absorbed my attention, and that's what I wanted to do as I grew up. When I was in high school, though, I experimented with a whole lot of different styles and genres and techniques and materials. I hadn't decided on anything particularly as far as what I wanted to do as an artist. I just liked doing it all. So I did a lot of different stuff when I was in high school. I studied cubism and abstraction, different artists like Georges Braque and Picasso and Matisse, Willem de Kooning and others like that. Just looking at the different art that was out there. I wasn't at that time set in any kind of thinking pattern. I don't think I am even today, but all of us, we have our biases and our prejudices as far as what we like and don't like. But I appreciate a whole gamut of different things for different reasons. And it's the same way with artists that I admire today. It's not that I admire every piece that they've ever done or think that every piece they've ever done is somehow magical or a masterpiece. Mine certainly aren't. But once in a while, I'll hit on a piece that I just think, yeah, I nailed it on that one. I really like that. And I want to do that again. But then the next one doesn't necessarily come out as well. I'm still working at it. And I'll be working at it for the rest of my life. I don't think we can live long enough in this world to really master it. We might be called masters of our craft, but I haven't mastered anything yet. There's so much I realize that I don't know yet. And I study relentlessly. I'm always thinking about this. When I go outside and I'm looking around at the landscape, the sky, the trees, the flowers, everything, I'm studying it every time I'm out there. When I'm sitting down in a room and there's a window, I'm looking out that window and I'm looking at the trees, I'm looking at everything, and I'm thinking, how would I paint the shadow on the side of that tree right now? How would I make that scene that's in front of me look beautiful? How would I do that? So I don't think I'm there, not by a long shot. And I haven't seen anyone yet, as talented as some of the people are that are out in the world, the art world today. I haven't seen any that I think, oh, they've arrived, they've done it, there's nowhere else for them to go. I think every one of us, no matter how long and how hard we try, we're going to have somewhere that we can progress to. So that doesn't mean that there isn't a reason for going to school and learning and the traditional aspects of art, like what we'd learn in some of the ateliers today in art schools. Learning how to draw well, to replicate what's in front of us, that's important. Drawing is the foundation of everything we do in art. So I'm a firm believer in learning from the best that we can learn from, getting the best education, whatever that means, for our particular interests in art. So I had some excellent teachers all the way from the beginning. My dad, my high school art teacher, Norma Sharma, was from Austria. She was excellent. When I got into college, Leon Parsons, Arlo Coles, I had a lot of excellent instruction all the way along. And I tried to take what they told me to do and do it. And it's been a huge benefit to me. It's the foundation for what I am able to accomplish today. When I was doing my master's degree, my MFA, it was an MFA generally is about 3 years of schooling. It's a terminal degree. There isn't anything higher in the arts. So an MFA is 60 credits rather than the typical 30 credit master's degree. When I finished, I had 68 credits. And I tried to, especially in some of my electives, do things that were a little bit different and that looked fun, like silk screening and metal art. I actually did with like arc welding and working with thick steel. And I created things for my garden with that. It looked fun, and I thought it would be intriguing to do. So there are so many things that I'm interested in when it comes to art. And I think most artists are like that. We could go in a multitude of directions. But I settled on landscape and flowers because when I was in high school, with all the different styles that I tried out, landscape and flowers seemed to keep pulling me back in. That was what I loved. And so that's what I decided to do. I didn't take up landscape and flowers painting because I thought, I wonder what would sell well out in the market. And the thought never even crossed my mind. When I was in high school, I wasn't thinking about what am I going to be able to sell once I'm done with school. I didn't care about that. I just wanted to learn something. And I wanted to do art. So I started painting more and more landscapes and flowers. I ended up winning awards while I was in high school because I had excellent teachers that helped me. I won the Congressional Art Award and First of States quite a few times. But that was kind of secondary to me. That was never really that important. I was just blessed that my high school art teacher told us about these art shows. Otherwise, I would have never thought about them. And she encouraged us to get involved in them. So I had some good experiences that way while I was in high school. And I think some of that helped to keep spurring me along and giving me confidence and helping me to think that maybe I could do something with all this stuff that I was learning. So as I went along, the landscapes and flowers, they became dominant in my direction as an artist. I love wildlife art. I did some of that while I was in college. I loved illustration. It was fun. I did years and years of figure drawing, and everything was from life. Drawing from just the head, the portrait, the bust, having models in class. All of that was fun. It was intriguing, and it was very challenging. So I had probably 5 years of figure drawing from a model, and I enjoyed that. But I didn't enjoy it nearly as much as getting outside and painting on location. So that's why I paint what I paint today. What I found when I was doing my master's degree was this mentality there that some forms of art were superior to other forms of art. And for instance, the ceramics professor that was there, I have some opinions about that I won't share today, but there was a friend of mine a fellow that I got to be good friends with there. He was in his 50s. He had come from Thailand, and he went through a master's program in Thailand for ceramics. This guy was incredible. His work was just so delicate and beautiful. It was the traditional pot making, and he was known in Thailand as a master of glazes, which can be very complicated. So he comes to America. His daughters, he wanted to raise them here. Thought there would be opportunities here that they didn't have there, I guess. But anyways, he ended up here in America. He was teaching at a university, and they decided that his master's degree from Thailand wasn't sufficient for him to continue teaching. So he had to get an MFA here in America. So he goes to the school that I'm at to get his MFA just so he could continue teaching. The fellow knew what he was doing when it came to ceramics. The program that he was in Thailand, it's one of those where for the first couple of years, all you get to do is knead clay. You never get to form anything. 2 years of that, just so they can get their muscles formed and know how the clay felt and all that sort of thing. It was a really rigorous program. So he comes here to this MFA program, and the ceramics professor says, you're not going to be allowed to do your pot making in this program because that's craft, and that is not fine art. This guy was a master of glazes. She could have used him because he had an assistantship. She could have used him to teach her students about glazes and all of this knowledge that he had about that. She could have used him to teach how to do this intricate work that he did as a ceramist. And she said, oh, no, we won't have anything to do with that because that's craft. That's not fine art. That's bogus. That's a flawed mentality right there. And that is, to me, a cessation of learning. We can't continue to learn if we say this is valid, this isn't. Or in my case, when I was doing my program, my professor was great. He allowed me to, I'd been a professional artist before I went back to finish my MFA for over 10 years, working full-time as a painter, selling my work in galleries. So I had already built up pretty much knowing what I was doing with painting to a great degree, but I wanted to refine it. And mostly I wanted to get the degree because I love to teach. And I thought that would open up more opportunities to do that. So I went back to school to finish my degree. And I hoped that I would learn some things as well as I went. So my professor, one semester, took a sabbatical. And this young fellow took his place, who had recently graduated with an MFA from the same school. And we went down to where all of the students' studios were. And we went around to each student's studio so that he could critique our work. And we could have kind of a group discussion about the work and see what everyone else was doing. And I thought that was great. I loved that. Just seeing everyone else's work, to me, is a lot of fun. And it's fascinating to see all the different ways of thinking and the directions that we can go with art. So we went around. Everything was going really well. And then I think I was the last one on the list. We get to my studio, and I have a couch in there, and this young fellow, he sat back on the couch like this, had his arms crossed, and he said, he's looking at, I just finished a large painting, like a 40 by 50, something like that. It was a pretty big landscape painting. And he sits back like this. He says, why? And I said, oh, why what? He said, why? Obviously it sells well. And I said, well, thank you. I don't think that really has much to do with anything. But he said, obviously it sells well, but it's not relevant to society today. I said, what do you mean it's not relevant? And he said, well, what does this have to do with society? This is old. This has already been done. So his idea, in fact, I'll put a picture of his stuff in here, one of his pieces. And he does some fascinating things. I like some of what he does. This guy, he has a great design sense. So I would go to his studio, and I enjoyed seeing his work. Not all of it. Some of it's kind of gruesome. And some of it I thought was, just, well, like one of the pieces that he had was called Church Tank. And he's done a series of those. And he takes plastic model parts, like a plastic tank, and then a plastic church steeple. He's not sculpting these from scratch. He's taking things that have already been fabricated, and then he's putting them together, and then he spray paints them and does things to them. And some of them are pretty interesting, and some of them are a little bit fascinating. Church Tank, he talked about how, just the name of it, you can kind of tell where it's going, right? When I saw the piece, I thought, all right, there's nothing really revelatory about it, but that's fine. So Church Tank, it's to show how much religion in the world has caused war, and how religion has been forced often on others. Christianity, the Muslim religion, different religions have often forced their religion on other groups of people. So, of course, I'm not in favor of that. I'm strongly a Christian. I know that religion has its downsides that way, but that's not because of the religion. That's because of some of the individuals who have a skewed idea about their religion and think that everybody else should believe what they believe. Kind of the way that this fellow thought about art. Well, if you don't believe the way I believe, your art's not relevant, or it's not appropriate. It shouldn't be done. So anyway, that whole idea, in fact, when I did my concepts class, I think I chose my concept maybe a little bit because I was being ornery that day, just because of all of that I dealt with. Before that, when I was in my undergraduate class, I took a contemporary art course, modern art course, and I had been painting full time for quite a while when I went back and finished off my undergrad work. Because I didn't finish early on my undergrad, because I started selling my work in galleries and then started painting full time, and I just never finished my degree. Started selling down in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and up in Montana, down in Arizona, and I just didn't see the need to finish off at the time. And we were helping out my wife's grandmother and some other things, so I never went back to finish my degree. So after about 10 years of painting full time, I decided to finish it off before it got too old and none of my credits worked anymore. So when I was doing that, I thought, you know what, I've studied a lot of this other work that's out there, contemporary work as they call it, modern art and all that, but I had never really done a significant study of the underlying principles that made critics and others seem to think that it was important, or that it had some greater merit than other forms of art. So I thought I would really like to study the underlying principles involved here. And that's really what it comes back to for me. What are the underlying principles involved here that make this successful, that make this significant, or make it wonderful and beautiful and all the other things that we like so much, that we admire so much in this world? So I'm taking this class, and I was just enthusiastic about this, the first few weeks that I was in this class, trying to absorb what I could and learn, thinking I'm going to learn some things here that are going to help my work and help me be a better artist. And then I realized that things started to change when I was walking through the hallway one day, and one of my wife's professors came walking beside me. And this fellow, very astute fellow, very intuitive. And he comes up to me and he says, "So why are you so glum today, Bill?" I said, "I didn't even realize I was glum." And I just come from that class. I walked out of that class, was walking down the hall when he came up beside me. And I just was thinking about all the things that were discussed in the class and what we had been discussing for weeks, and realized that it was bringing me down. I was not a happy camper coming out of that class. So I started to think about that. I started to ponder more on that. Why was I coming out of that class and not being cheerful, like my natural cheery disposition? What was bringing me down about this? So for my research paper, that's what I tackled. And I discussed how, well, for perspective, the professor in that class told us about an experience that he had when he went to San Francisco. And he was in a gallery there, and he said, "This piece of artwork was the most profound experience I have had in my life." He said there was a shotgun set up across from a chair, and the shotgun was set up on a timer. You could go as a viewer and sit in that chair across from that shotgun not knowing when that timer was set to go off. In fact, even the artist supposedly didn't know when the timer was set to go off. It was arbitrary. But there were all these gears and things that were ticking away that eventually would pull that trigger and blow something up. So he went and sat down in that chair and said that that put him in such touch with his mortality that it changed his life. And I thought, that's moronic. That's stupid. Why would anyone do that? Life is more precious than that. And that is not artwork. That's asinine. That's ridiculous. There's nothing, to me, artistic about that. That's somebody that's the emperor's clothing, is what that is. There are some critics and supposed experts out there that have pulled the wool over a lot of people's eyes and created this myopic sense of this is what is real. This is art today. Don't believe it. Don't listen to it. It's garbage. That sort of thing is garbage. That has nothing to do with art, at least not the essence of what I consider to be art. So that was the sort of thing that was getting me down. All this stuff that they were aggrandizing and making out to be something significant and important, it was all just negative and destructive, and it elevated all of the baser things in life to some porcelain tower status thing there. I don't get it. I didn't get it then, and I don't get it now, and I don't want really to get it. I don't think there is anything there to get. I went in open-minded, wanting to know what the principles were that made this stuff important and special. And I figured out that it was individuals who have a base view of life that made people think that this stuff was somehow important. At least more important than something that's beautiful. So when I was in my MFA program and I had my concepts class, and they went around the room asking all the students what their concept was. This is basically the thesis for our program. It would be like the doctoral thesis for a degree program. So for mine, I said, beauty is my concept. And the professor, she said, well, that's not a concept. I said, what do you mean? Why isn't it a concept? She said, well, beauty isn't relevant to society. Beauty isn't relevant to society today. I said, boy, I've been hearing that a lot lately from the professors here at this school, and I think it's entirely relevant. It is exactly what society needs more of. Just because ugliness and destruction might be more prevalent in society today doesn't make it more relevant to society today, or doesn't make it more necessary or important for society today. I think that if we can take and fill our minds and our homes and our communities with greater beauty and things that uplift and instruct and edify, that create rather than destroy, that our society and our world will be a much better place, which makes that entirely relevant today. It will improve society. We should be shouting from the rooftops those things that make us feel good, that build us up, that make us want to go over and talk with our neighbors and associate with one another and do good things for one another. Not broadcast all these things that bring us down and make us depressed and make the world look like it's an ugly place. This world is amazing. Do you know that in the scriptures, in the Bible, the Old Testament, one of the first things that it talks about, I think probably the first thing, when it talks about Heavenly Father creating trees, He didn't say that He created trees so that it would clean the air or some other scientific object in mind. I mean, those things are all there, but the number one most important reason why He created trees was to beautify and bring variety to the face of the earth. That's what this is for. That's why he created this earth. It was to be enjoyed, to be something beautiful, something marvelous for us to raise our families and associate with one another and do good things while we're here. So this idea that something that is that points out all of the negative in this world today is somehow more important, and that's what we should be teaching our students. No, I don't agree with that. I think that's wrong. I think that that might exist in the world, but we should be finding ways to help to overcome that, to not have that be part of our world or our society. We should be teaching our children how to love one another, how to get along with each other, how to do good things for each other, to serve one another. Our art should be something that elevates and uplifts and strengthens our society, not point out all the destruction and the baseness and the ugliness that's out there. Sure, it exists, but it shouldn't. It exists because there are people who aren't nice to one another, who aren't doing good things, because we have politicians who care more about themselves and their own power and wealth than they do at all about what's good for society. Ignore those people. If we start to do things that will make our thoughts on the positive side of life, then maybe we'll start to bring in some politicians and leaders that actually have those same ways of thinking, and that will start to give us laws and regulations and other things that are sincerely in our best interest, not in the best interest of their pocketbooks or their supposed power trips that they're on. We don't need that. And so this fellow, Chris Cooksey, who makes this sculpture, the church tank, and he does these other things. Some of his work is fascinating, and it might have some relevance out there. He's pointing out, I mean, his stuff, he describes it on the macabre side of things. And he does, I mean, some of it is really well designed. It has a lot of fun and intricate stuff in there. He takes a lot of like toy soldiers and all kinds of little plastic parts and cuts them up and bends them and melts them and does things to them and then paints them and designs these things in a way that really is pretty intriguing. But that doesn't mean, just because it might be fascinating or it might teach somebody something about, I mean, maybe there's somebody out there that isn't familiar with the idea that religion has caused war. That's not the only thing that's caused war. There are a whole lot of things. Really, the basis of all war is just selfishness. That's what it comes down to. If somebody goes out and starts a war in the name of religion, it's because they're selfish, because they're arrogant, because they are puffed up with their own self-importance. That's what happens. That's what's happening here with what I'm talking about with these philosophies in art, that somehow the way that I paint is more significant than someone who does a craft like ceramics or this guitar painting. No, there's nothing. My art isn't more important. It just happens to be what I like to do. That's it. There's nothing inherently special or more significant about it than somebody who paints on a guitar that they created out of metal parts. When I go through and I do a critique of these pieces, what I'm thinking about is not teaching these students to do what I do as an artist, but how can I take what they're doing and share the principles that I think about to create my artwork, and share those principles in a way that will strengthen what they're already doing or what they love to do. That's my goal as an instructor, as a teacher. So if somebody, now with this critique, maybe I took too long on that particular one. I do get wordy, and probably with this, you might have already shut off already because I am wordy. Sometimes I just talk too much. But it's not because I'm trying to be wordy. It's because sometimes I'm just at a loss for words, or I'm trying to find the particular thought, or I'm trying to look at it and discover what is it in here that the principles I understand, that I've come to have some semblance of an understanding of, how can I use those principles to help this person? What is it in this artwork here that would benefit from those principles and from those little nuggets of knowledge that I've accumulated over 30 years of painting? I don't pretend in any way to know it all, not even close, not even a fraction of what's available out there. That's why we're all here to work together, to help one another. I study other artists all the time. I love to learn from all these great artists that are out there, these brilliant minds that are creating beautiful things. But I like things that are beautiful, that are uplifting. And yes, beauty is in the eye of the beholder to a degree. But it doesn't, I think it's pretty obvious. Okay, for instance, Lucian Freud, Francis Bacon, come on, that stuff's ugly. I mean, Lucian Freud tries to say that his portraiture really gets at the heart of the person. It really puts out there their personality, what's inside of them, he's putting on the outside. I don't want him to paint me because I'm hoping that I'm not that ugly on the inside. Francis Bacon, Willem de Kooning. Yeah, I've read books about their work. I understand where they're coming from to the degree that I'm able to, personally, to understand where they're coming from. As much as I probably want to understand where they're coming from, but I don't agree with it. So that's my prerogative, and that's everyone else's as well. But what I hope will be emphasized in this video right here, this rant video that I'm doing, is that who cares what the critics say? Who cares what these, it seems to be pretty prevalent in university systems today, unfortunately. Who cares what these university professors say about what's important and what's not? I saw them berating young artists, these young students, about what they should be doing and what they shouldn't be doing. Fortunately, I was already confident in the direction I was going with my art, or they might have gotten away with that with me. But I'm saddened by the thought that there are a lot of young students out there who actually get berated so much that they believe what these professors are telling them, that they actually believe that this flash fire fame kind of work is somehow more important and more relevant to our society. That's just not true. So for me, as I've gone along in my life, I've painted what I wanted to paint. Not because I thought it would sell better, regardless of what this young professor thought. I don't do it because I think it'll sell better. I do it because it's what I like to do. It's what I love. When I go outside, I see things every day that I just think, oh, that is really beautiful. I want to paint that. And so I do. So every one of us, whether it's doing what Chris Cooksey does or what Lucian Freud does or what Norman Rockwell or Monet or whoever else does, do what you love to do. If you see a style of art that really catches you and tugs at your heartstrings, then go for it. And ignore all of the other naysayers out there about that. There's always going to be that group, those people that are so enclosed in their own way of thinking that they can't see anything else. And maybe I am to an extent that way as well. Because for the most part now, I have no interest in much of modern art. I think Chris Cooksey talked about how much of art is frivolous today and materialistic. I agree. I think the same way about much of modern art. I think that it's vacuous. It's simplistic, and not simplistic in a good way, not where we have a childlike simplicity or innocence about it, but that it's taking advantage of gullibility. The emperor's clothing kind of thing, where they've made this huge illusion that somehow there's something really special about that way of thinking. And to me, that way of thinking is just the baser side of life. So really it comes down to, what do you want to do? What are you interested in? Do you like the baser things? Does that appeal to you? Or do you like the more elevating things, the things that typically or traditionally are considered beautiful? I'm not trying to get into a discussion here about what is beauty, because that's a huge one right there. And that would take a whole other video. But what is it that you as an artist really love? And if you love that, then go for that. Start finding instructors that are sort of in that same direction and learn from them. Take everything that you can from them and then improve upon it. Take what I learn and go way beyond me and improve upon what I've done. And then hopefully I can start to learn from you as well. There are so many different ideas and directions. We never know what it is in our lives, what experience, what thought we're going to have, what book we read, what movie we see, what activity we're involved in that's going to suddenly spark something within us that causes a shift in the way that we think, the way that we act, and the way that we produce art, the way that we go after our art. But we should, as individuals, have enough confidence in our own intuition and ability, our own ability to learn and to reason and to think. There are very few people on this earth that don't have the ability to really learn. We have a son with Down syndrome, and he's fantastic. I've learned all kinds of things from him in the 8 years that he's been in our family. So I don't believe in limitations, and I don't believe that my view of the world is that most people are good and that life is tough for everybody, no matter what we do in life. So we might as well do something that we really love, and we might as well go for something that will be of service to somebody else as well. And as we learn, share it. Share what we learn. This idea about secrets and other things, that's flim-flam. That doesn't make any sense at all to me. We should be quick to want to help one another, to share what we've learned with each other, and hopefully then this world will just get better and better all the time. And our own lives, I know, will get better and better. I've never made a lot of money as an artist. That's never been my pursuit. But I have loved my life. I have a great family. I have brilliant children. And by brilliant, I mean they're happy, they're smart, and they care about other people. To me, that's brilliant. So as you look at my channel, there are people on there who don't like what I do. Then go find somebody that you do like and learn from them. I don't pretend to think that my art is the best out there or that it's the only way to think or the only way to paint. Not by a long shot. So I hope that what I'm sharing with people will be of benefit to them. And yes, I have to make a living as I go. So I sell my work in galleries, and I have an art course that I created that I hope that I can make enough money off of it to help facilitate all of this, to help me keep doing these videos and that sort of thing. But even the art course, I didn't do it with the thought of, wow, I can make money from this. I have no idea whether I'll make money from it or not. But I did have some people that asked if I could do a course from starting from the very beginning, and like how to make panels and how to choose brushes and how to choose paint and all of that sort of thing, all the way up through to how do I create a painting. And so I took time off to create a course like that. And I've put everything into it that I could think of that would be helpful, that I know. And then hopefully I can keep learning from others as well who do the same thing. And if we all keep doing that and sharing what we do, then art's going to just go into such amazing places. And that's what I love to see. I don't care if somebody gets better than me. I hope that people get better than me so that I can see what they're doing and then get better myself. I expect all of my children to be a whole lot better in their lives than I am. That's what I was training them and teaching them, so that they could be like that, so they could be better than me in every way, hopefully. So anyway, in the critiques that I do, I'm going to continue to critique paintings that come to me, whether somebody considers them craft or serious art. To me, it's all serious art. This lady who did this guitar piece, she purchased my course because she wanted to learn something. So she has a mindset of, I want to improve my art. I want to learn something new. I think that's great. So I'm going to teach her everything that I personally can teach her. And then hopefully she'll take that and then learn from somebody else as well. And then take what she's learned as she goes along and teach somebody else. And that's how this world keeps going forward, and how this world is such a beautiful place to live in. So serious art to me, I don't believe in it. Not really. Now, I do believe in the foundations of art. Sound drawing, learning color, how colors work together, especially the colors that we use as painters. So whatever colors that we have on our palette, we should learn what all of those do when they're mixed together with one another. Those are some of the things, those are the foundational things that we need to know really well in order to do what we want to do. So when we go out on location and we're painting a tree, we should be able to go to those colors on our palette and know how to mix them so that we can get the color that we're looking at out there without having to think about it much. When we get to that point, when we've gone through all the foundational things, and we've learned how to draw well and how our colors mix together and what it means, what color temperature is all about, and certain brush techniques and that sort of thing, like dry brushing as opposed to mixing wet into wet, and blending and glazes and all of that. When we get some of those fundamentals really settled into our minds, then we can go outside and not have to think much about those. They just become second nature. We can sit back and just start painting, and then everything just flows. And there are moments when we'll be out painting and it's magical. And that's why we as artists do what we do. Once we get those fundamentals out of the way, then we can start to create magic, and we can create something that makes somebody else feel good. They'll come up and say, wow, I really feel like I can smell the flowers. Or this reminds me of my grandfather and I when we were out fishing, or whatever it is. We bring something back to them, or we bring something new to them that makes them feel good and makes them appreciate this world and all the beauty that's in it. And that's what art is really all about, for me, at least as an artist. That's why I do what I do. And I hope that all of us will keep that in mind as we go along, and stop being so belittling and petty about things, and just love one another and build each other up, and increase our confidence, increase the confidence of those around us, so that every one of us feels like we could accomplish whatever it is that we want to do. Whatever we set our minds to and our hearts to, we can do it. I know that all of us are capable of that. And so those who like that sort of thing, then I hope that you learn a lot from the things that I share on YouTube and everything else that I do this way. And those who don't like that kind of thinking, no problem. Go find somebody else. But stop wasting your time with my stuff if it's not going to do anything for you. So there's not much time in this world. Even if we live to be 150 years old, that's really not much time in the whole span of existence. So we might as well take advantage of it and do something magical with our lives. So that's the end of my rant right there. And so for those who are those members of my art course, as we go along and I do these critiques, send me whatever it is that you want to critique. And as I address it, I'm not going to talk about the specific style and whether it's a legitimate style or not. I'm going to try to identify within those pieces that you send what it is that I can help you with that will increase hopefully, the quality of the underlying principles in your work, not whether or not the style is appropriate or legitimate, or whether it's relevant to society today or not. So have fun, enjoy painting, really have joy when you're painting, because that's what it's all about, isn't it? Isn't that why we're here, to have joy? I believe it is. And that's why I do what I do. And I'm going to continue doing it, I think, the rest of my life, because I haven't found any reason not to yet. I love it. And I haven't, there's no dearth of things for me to paint. One tree isn't like another tree to me. One flower isn't like another flower. There's so much to paint. I'm going to keep doing it for years to come, at least for the foreseeable future. And I hope all of you find something that you really love like that, because it does make life magical. And I'll talk to you later. Have fun painting.